Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and you know what? I am gradually running out of ways of introducing these reviews, so instead of rambling about nothing for a hot minute, I'll just tell you that yesterday was the final and only show of Dansk Melodi Grand Prix 2018. As the name implies, and as the thing on the bottom of the screen will have already told you, that's the national final of Denmark, and as a result, they've chosen their act for Eurovision 2018. Now, I would apologise for the way I'm about to butcher the Danish language naming system, phonetics or whatever, but in my experience, Danish people especially love it when people from other countries try to pronounce Danish and fail miserably, so I'll just say that the performer is one Jonas Flordag Rasmussen, and, well, he's just called Rasmussen for short, and the song is called Higher Ground. It was written by Niklas Arn and Carl Euren. They're Swedish, apparently. Go figure. And the song is in English, and apparently it's based on some Viking legend about a pacifist Viking, which, that was a thing, apparently. I would wear some sort of helmet with horns on it, but I don't have one, and apparently real Vikings didn't either, so let's just get on with my first impressions instead of doing that thing that I was saying before about waffling about nothing. Let's begin. So, going into this song, honestly, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I already knew that it was very Viking, according to what I'd been told. I knew it was about this Viking legend, but other than that, didn't really know what sort of thing, you know. Was it going to be, like, Ailstorm pirate metal? Was it going to be, like, Latvia 2008? I don't know why I keep coming back to pirates, it's just people with boats who did things historically. Well, anyway, from the audio alone, regardless of expectations, it absolutely delivers, and the live performance only serves to further back that up. This is a good song. This is interesting, and to Razzie Boy's credit, it doesn't feel like it's just preying on Viking imagery just for the sake of having a gimmick. It's using Denmark's classical heritage as a starting point, and then building a unique Gestalt identity for the song from there. Well, whatever the case, it's got a very different identity from Denmark's other recent offerings, and to be quite honest, I like it. It feels genuine, it sounds right at home representing Denmark, and, well, in my initial notes I wrote that this song has got balls, so, you can be proud of that if you want to. If nothing else, it makes a big entrance and it doesn't go away until it's well and truly finished, but I don't want to tread on the toes of what you might like about this song, no indeed. As always, that gets its own section of the review, and since I've started rambling in that direction, I think we should get started on that. Now, as I already noted, this song makes a huge entrance in a way that sort of reminds me of Norway 2013, Margaret Berger, I Feed You My Love. Whatever the case is, it grabs your attention and sets the scene right out of the gate, and it keeps that world-building momentum up throughout the entire song. It never slows down, it never falters. The atmosphere is big, all-consuming and infectious, and the overall melody bolsters that with a sense of dark adventure, is one way of putting it, I suppose. In keeping with the song's aesthetic, there's a sense of boldly going. Not necessarily where no one's gone before, just boldly going. That's what this song is. It's a strong and surprisingly memorable package, for sure. Another aspect of the song that lends itself to that is the, let's call it second-tier instrumentation. What I mean is the heavy beat and the deep, almost monastic vocals. They keep time just as well as they keep up the song's identity, which is a crucial part of Higher Ground's overall appeal. For that matter, its general presence is even more overwhelming in a good way during the live performance. It's something that really benefits from having someone there singing it to you rather than just being a studio version. It works in the studio, but being live, it also has that extra oomph. Helped in no small part by the visuals of the stage to back up the combined aesthetic package with an extra level of power to Rasmussen's singing voice that you could only really truly appreciate in a live delivery. And by that I mean you can watch it on TV, and if he's on stage you can appreciate that. I mean as opposed to just listening to it on a CD or an MP3 or whatever you kids do these days. And to wrap it all up with a nice neat Viking ribbon, if such a thing actually exists, it has a key change towards the end. Now normally, if you know me, if you've been on my channel for several years, I would be very quick to criticise that because, well, most Eurovision songs force a key change in because it's the Eurovision thing to do, but it isn't. And it hasn't been for at least 20 years at this point. But in this case, strangely, it feels semi-organic and at least a little bit germane to the song. Your mileage may vary, you might disagree with that, and that's fine. I think it works. It doesn't need to be there, but they make it work. It fits. It isn't just there to make the song sound Eurovision-y. It's there because it fits the theme. And theming is a very strong part of Denmark's package this year, and so I can appreciate that. Now though, let's take a look at the other side of things. What might you not appreciate quite so much with this song? Because, key changes aren't for everyone, but I'll get back to that in just a second. I think, as far as potential negatives go, the main thing with this song is that for all the credit I've given to the intense atmosphere and the way it sticks rigidly to its general feeling, without feeling like it's obsessing over it, by the way, I do think that this is something of a go hard or go home kind of situation. That is to say, if they do anything about this performance in Lisbon by half measures, then that oh so powerful atmosphere will start to deflate and just sort of come down around Rasmussen's feet, costing the song its credibility. From what I've seen so far, I don't think that's all too likely, in all honesty, but it is still worth bearing in mind. The first 15 seconds or so of the performance in Dansk Melodi Grand Prix did sound just a tiny bit shaky just at the beginning, but he did pull it back for the vast majority of the song, so it's really not something to concern yourself with, but it is a possibility, so just think about that maybe. Also, while it does fit the everything else that the song is going for, I do find the rhyme structure to be a touch basic, to be honest, and that could just be me. I've pulled songs up in previous years for being a bit too eager to get to a rhyme that rhymes with the previous line, and this song does fall foul of that. It's a bit too eager to, it rhymes a bit too quickly. That is just my personal taste, but it's almost childish, but it does fit the theme the song is going for, and it's part of the package, and it works. It bothers me, but it also, I appreciate why it's there, is the problem. And so in truth, it works most of the time, but there are some points where I personally sit back and think, yeah, they could have been a bit more graceful about that, but whatever. There's a balance to be found, I suppose. I mean, it works as it currently is, I'm just being nitpicky. Now, my other criticism of this song is extremely a me thing, something that only I would think, but I do have to ask, would this song still exist if Eurovision didn't exist? Was this just written for Eurovision? Because I do find it to be something of a musical sin if a Eurovision entry is written in a vacuum just for Eurovision. Like, someone's locked themselves in a room and thought, right, what are the cliches and conventions and things that I can do to tick all the boxes for a Eurovision performance? I'm not saying that that's how this was written, but there are some songs that do feel that way, and the more it feels like that, the more it becomes a problem. Because if you don't have a consideration for the wider musical world, it makes the song feel a little bit more fake. Like, it reminds you that anything the song makes you feel, you're only feeling that just because it was written for this specific stage with the intention of artificially making you feel something, which is a really difficult concept for me to articulate, and I hope I've made sense. I'm not trying to call Rasmussen out individually for this. There are some songs that do it quite badly. This isn't bad by that standard, it's just, this is a talking point for me to springboard off and mention. And so it does make me wonder, does this song only exist just to compete in Eurovision? Which, as I said, other songs do it worse, and I will stop talking in circles. It's just, it makes me wonder, because this isn't the sort of thing you'd expect to hear in the charts. For that matter, it's a little bit dated, like by about 10 years or so, but in Eurovision terms, that's nothing. In the real world, I don't know if it would hold up in the charts, but if you like it, that's fine. If you don't like it, that's also fine. So if it doesn't exist just for the sake of Eurovision, that's fine. If it does exist just for Eurovision, that is fine too. I just worry, okay? Everything's fine, no matter who thinks what about whatever. Everything's fine. Calm down, Tess, and get on with the review. Okay, right. Personal rating out of 10. I did spend a good amount of time deliberating over this, and every time I listened to the song, I came up with a different number, and I was almost convinced to go low with this one, or low from the general band of scores that I'd settle on, but honestly, after giving the song just one more chance, yeah, no, I'm giving this a personal 10. There it is. Make no mistake, I'm not head over heels in love with the song, but if you listen to it with headphones and turn it up a little higher than you're used to listening to stuff to, then, like, for instance, normally I listen to my computer at 34% volume. I listened to this on 40 and it made quite a bit of a difference. You wouldn't have thought it would, but it did. So yeah, the overall everything about the song, at least for me, really pops, really comes into its own if you just listen to it a bit louder. And anyway, the song has its aesthetic in mind, and it nails it at every possible turn. It wants to sound ballsy and adventurous and victorious without sacrificing relative seriousness, and it just succeeds, at least on a personal level. I'm so on board with this one. It makes me feel everything it's supposed to make me feel, and that's a sure hallmark of victory as far as execution goes. I'm not saying it's going to win Eurovision, I'm just saying it has a goal and it has succeeded with me with that goal. Now, as for the technical score, As I said, just because it got a 10 on my personal scale doesn't mean I think it's flawless. But on a technical front, I'll award this an 8. While it establishes a strong overall presence for itself and sticks rigidly to its aesthetic without excessively obsessing over it, that's a tongue twister, try saying that 10 times fast, I do find the lyrics and rhyme structure to be somewhat distracting, if I'm just listening with a critical ear. There are parts of the song where that works, sure, but there are also parts where it's a little jarring, almost a little childish. Then there's also that small thing where it took me a few listens before I fully understood the lyrics, namely the first line of the refrain. My family had a bit of trouble with this as well. I'm not really sure how it could be fixed, so it is almost definitely just a me thing, but it does at first sound like freeze the air or win the air. And then it sounds silly because it's repetitive, but that's not what the actual lyric is, so criticising it is something of a fallacy. And my mother heard it as something like 3 PM, love's in the air, or something like that. So it's easy to mishear, but that's not even an enunciation thing, that's literally just us. I don't know, it is what it is. There's also my concern that the song might be a bit too Eurovision only at the expense of everything else, which is a extensive thing to put in air quotes. That could be said of a lot of songs, but if it is only written with Eurovision in mind, there'll always be that modest air of syntheticness to it that might hamper your enjoyment somewhat. It's still a solid 8 on a technical scale though, so no harm done. Now, is this a step in the right direction for little Denny Moo? In all strictness, I ought to say that it's a neutral move for Denmark, since the selection process is completely unchanged from previous years, as it has been for quite some time, but I'm going to call this a positive step, albeit a mild one. As I understand it, year on year, Denmark, and a couple of other countries to be fair, have been getting progressively more and more submissions for their national selection processes. So they must be doing something right. Besides that, this entry specifically marks a step away from the slightly blander, slightly more identity-neutral entries Denmark has been settling for in previous years. It's a bit different, it's a bit more distinctly Danish, and I can respect it for that. But is that a sign that it'll qualify? Under any other circumstances, I'd be inclined to say that this would be about 70-75% likely to qualify, with there some room for being a shock non-qualifier. To be fair, it is somewhat stylistically dated, as I've said, or so my mother supposes anyway, and I do see what she's saying. So voters might quickly take to the song's composition, presentation, and identity, but they might lose interest if it's not to their liking. However, by a quirk in the otherwise totally fair pot system, Denmark is in the same semi-final as Sweden and Norway, both of whom share a stake in Denmark's Viking history. Plus, the song was written by Swedish people, and Swedish people know how to please Swedish people, so naturally, this inclines those countries more towards getting the song, which means they're more likely to vote for it relatively. That's not political voting, by the way, it's just voting for what you're culturally familiar with. That doesn't guarantee Rasmussen a spot in the final this year by any means, it just reduces the odds of it being a shock non-qualifier. But anything could happen in the end. You know, Sweden could stab them in the back and say, haha, you thought we were going to vote for you and we didn't. I don't know how you countries think. Britain has no friends, haha. I'm jesting. For now though, I have been and will continue to be Tessellating Hexagons, and Denmark, Rasmussen, the Viking people, very good luck to you, and we'll see what happens when you get to Lisbon in May.